everybody. I am Tish Times, and I have a question for you. How important is diversity? We hear a lot about DEI, diversity, inclusion, equity, even belonging, and so many other words that you may have heard of. But how important are those things to your sales process? So, once again, I'm Tish Times. I own the Tish Times Sales Agency. And I am the author of Networking is Not a One Night Stand, as well as the Networking and Sales Planner. And today I want to talk to you a little bit about something that you're not used to hearing me talk about, but I've been talking about it for a very long time. In my sales agency, we work specifically with coaches, consultants, and agency owners who are rocking out their business, who are amazing at what they do, and they still struggle a little bit, still fumble a little bit when it comes to their sales process. So we help them to create sales processes. We help them to find money in their current connections and in their current network. And we help them to fall in love with sales again. So I talk about sales all the time because it's what I do, right? It's what we do around here pretty regularly. But what you may not know is that I also sit on what we call the bench for other companies, talking about things like diversity, anti bullying, sexual harassment, things like that. Because I used to own a staffing company. I've been in that space for many, many, many years. And for over 20 years, I've been doing some type of corporate training, leadership, how to have difficult conversations, all of those types of things. So even though I don't always make it public, on my sales agency website, it's definitely something that I've been doing for a real long time. And I've recently realized how important it is to kind of marry those two topics and bring a little bit of light to the place, of our conversation around diversity and sales, because there definitely is there's a marriage there, there's a connection that I don't think people really consider or really think about it. So let me just, for the sake of those who this topic might be new to, I'm just going to give some real quick definitions of what these words mean. And we're talking about DEI specifically today. And I want to also preface by saying that today I'm going to do a very short, short conversation. I'm open. If you're here and you want to ask questions, put them in the chat. And I will definitely address them as I see them. And if you're watching this on the replay, put hashtag replay, put your question in, and I'll make sure that I respond to you as well. But I will definitely leave you with more questions than you would imagine today. So we're not going to have time to address it all. We're not going to have time to delve into the entire landscape of DEI as it pertains to sales. But my hope is that you'll walk away with some questions. Again, you can ask me while we're here. And I want you to take those questions or those kind of ahas that you might have and have a deeper conversation with your team. And to be honest with you, the team might just be you. And you might be the one who needs to go a little bit deeper and maybe do some research or schedule some time to have a conversation with someone like me that can help you to kind of figure out, okay, how is this important in my business? How do I apply it? What should I be doing? What should I possibly not be doing? And really, have a plan around it, opposed to just kind of wondering, thinking, or not even paying attention to it at all. So, we're going to talk about the definition for diversity. The very brief and not the only, but a definition for diversity is about building a team that represents a variety across race, gender, religion, sexual orientation, and ethnicity, age, socioeconomic status, nationality, and that's only a little bit. There's not a box that we can put it in, but those are a few of the things that I want you to consider. What I don't want is for us to only look at diversity and think it's only about race, because that's not it. Hi, Melanie. Equity, it's about offering support to team members based on their needs. And this happens when leadership provides everyone with equal access to resources and opportunities. And that is so important when it comes to sales, more important than you may even realize. We'll talk a little bit about that in a second. And inclusion is creating a work environment that is supportive, respectful, collaborative, and aims to get all employees to participate and to contribute. And so in the world of sales, we kind of think that's an operations thing. We don't have to deal with that. We don't have to worry about those things. But I want you to begin to think a little bit differently. And if you are a business owner, man, I want you to be like ears open, ready to hear this, because this is something I want you to take back to your sales managers, right, to your sales team, and begin to talk through if, in fact, this is something that they've already considered. Is it something that needs to be considered? And so when we talk about things like creating ideal clients, target markets, I call it our perfect client profile, all of those things, they're so important. And I want you to also be very aware of how easy it is to add your bias into your target market. And sometimes without even meaning to, we create a target market that makes us the most comfortable. We create a target market that looks like us, that sounds like us, that thinks the way that we think, right? And it's a real slippery slope. There's a very thin line because yes, we want to create a market, a target market, a target audience, ideal client profile that we understand, right? We know how to serve them, we know how to sell to them, but just be aware of why. I'm not going to tell you don't create it based on people that you understand and that you know and that you feel like you can really resonate with, but just be really clear on why you are creating it so that you're not just creating a market that mirrors just the way you think. In our training sessions, I have a dear friend, Lori Battaglia. Shout out to Lori. We do a training, and one of the things that we'll do is we'll ask people to list out their 10 closest friends, right? 10 closest relationships. And it becomes really interesting for the people who are participating because without realizing it, they've surrounded themselves, we've surrounded ourselves, because I'm guilty of it as well. We surround ourselves with people who maybe we all go to the same church, maybe we all have kids the same age, maybe we all went to the same college. You know, you get what I'm saying? And it's a subconscious behavior, but sometimes that behavior bleeds into the way that we're crafting our target market, right? And so just be really clear, is it someone as your market people that you really can serve at the highest level, or is it someone you're really comfortable with? And that's the only reason you've created that. So, again, I'm leaving you with more questions for you to kind of ponder on yourself, but begin to think about it because often we sell from our own bias. Just think about that, right? If we're selling from our own bias, are we serving at the highest level? Are we really meeting the needs of the people that we're reaching out to? And are we limiting ourselves? Are we only reaching out to people that, again, we really feel most comfortable with and leaving out people who need us the most because we've not even considered them? Also, it's really important for us to realize that our selling team, right? Our team, our sales team, the people that we're employing on our in our companies. Again, maybe it's just us, maybe it's us and one other person, but we're better able to understand the buyer's needs when it is more diverse. And again, diversity is not just race, so please don't think about that. Thinking about gender, thinking about people that come from various, different backgrounds, who have different customs, who have different abilities, right? They just think different than you do. And having people coming from these various backgrounds help us to make sure that we're understanding things from the customer's vantage point and not from our own bias. They're able to see things frequently when you bring in a variety of different types of people to that selling table, that decision making table when we're creating packages, when we're talking about having deeper sales conversations. Many times they're able to see things that you may not be seeing, that you may not even perceive that your potential client might need from you. So even if it's a team of one, it's a great idea to get yourself in a coaching group, to create a quote unquote board of directors, if you will, for your business. Some people that can help you to kind of take a broader look at what you might be looking through a very narrow lens through, right? You might be really only seeing it from your perspective. And so be aware of your own biases, and where we're often not, but that's why bringing in additional eyes, different additional ears, and people that might think a little bit differently can be really helpful. Many times having a diverse team can also help us to make sure we're not creating products, packages, services that don't really meet the needs. I personally, I know I've done it. And if you're in business for yourself, you've probably done this too. Created a package and you're like, oh my God, this is amazing. Everybody's going to need this. This is going to sell like hotcakes. And then, of course, it doesn't. Who's ever done that? Raise your hand if you've ever done that, right? But sometimes having a diverse group of people helping you when you're making those types of decisions can help you to see the gaps, can help you to see the things that you just didn't consider, can help you to think about your pricing, because sometimes we're pricing based on our own pocketbooks. We're projecting sometimes our spending habits on the people. I see that, Val. We're projecting our own spending habits on the people that we should be selling to. And I love this phrase. I forget where I heard it, but I've been saying it for years now, so I'm going to claim it as mine. But stop putting thought bubbles over other people's heads. Because just because you may think that this is great or it should cost this much, it's possible that you're making that decision based on your own bias, maybe even based on your own past experiences, your own fears, and you might be missing opportunities. Um, Having a variety of voices helps us to sometimes realize where we might be stopping the cell from advancing. Because again, we're maybe answering things from our own thought process and not really considering how others might be thinking. We might not be considering the buying habits of various buying groups, right? Maybe we're only thinking about how women buy because we're women, or only thinking about how men buy because you're a man, only thinking about how your ethnicity purchases, and then again it goes back to making sure that your target market isn't based only on who you are, but it's based on the wider possibilities, the possible needs that your ideal client might be having. Um, Sometimes we also, without realizing it, and I just having come from a corporate environment when I was in staffing, I remember sitting in these corporate, boardrooms having these sales conversations, and many times there's multiple purchasers in the room, and then we have an entire sales team having these conversations. Sometimes it's just when we're entrepreneurs, it's just us and the buyer, right? But however it is, frequently we take that E, which is the equity, um, that inclusion portion out of the picture. We don't consider it when we're having sales conversations. Let me tell you what I mean by that. And so we sometimes make assumptions based on a person's response to us. We'll assume that the most vocal person, the loudest person in the room on the buying side is the most influential. And we will sometimes isolate or even sometimes alienate the person who is not speaking up as much on the buying side. And we'll make the assumption that this is the person we need to speak to. And let me tell you how that sometimes looks. Sometimes, because that person is more vocal, we'll make sure that we're now speaking directly to them, especially if it's, if you're a woman and this is a male. And I'll just say it because when we're thinking about the person in control, often, not always, but often, in our minds, we think it's the white male in the room. And that may not be the case. In many cases, it's not. But if that person is most vocal, we'll give all of our attention there and not really consider the women in the room, the minority in the room, right? And not realizing that might be your decision maker. And even if they're not the decision maker, they could be the most influential person sitting at that table. And so make sure that you're including everyone in the conversation. Even if you're clear on who the person is who's making that decision, ultimately, you still want to be sure that you're not alienating the person who might have the most influence in the room. You're not making a decision when you walk in as to who's in control without asking the right questions. I've had it happen myself, and I was doing a session with Nabo yesterday. Shout out to Nabo Phoenix. And I was facilitating this kind of conversation, but on a broader scale. And we were talking about how often people make a decision based on when they see someone who's the person in control. I've been in situations where I've been leading maybe an event and walked into my event space as the owner of my company and walked in with a counterpart who just happened to be a white female or a younger person. And the person looked at a different person and made the assumption that it was the white female who was the owner of the business, not even asking who was in control. So, in all honesty, that could have been for me it could have been like, okay, I don't want to do business with them because they just made a decision that I'm not worthy of being in the role that I serve. So, just again, understand that we sometimes make decisions based on whom we are most comfortable with. Hi, Samantha. Who we feel like, we've always determined to be in charge. And then on the flip side of that, there's times when we're intimidated by that person. We're intimidated. And I'm going to use myself as an example just to give you, really good context. I know that when I was working in the staffing world and I would be brought these sales conversations, there was a time in my career where I was intimidated by that, especially male figure who sat behind this big desk and kind of, in my opinion, held my commission in their hand, and I had to, have to be able to impress them. And I had to deal with my own insecurities. I had to deal with my own biases, my own, previous experiences, so that I didn't miss those opportunities because of my thought process, because of the way I was feeling. And so, again, don't alienate the person in the room who's the least quiet, but also don't be intimidated by the person who is possibly the loudest, or what you may perceive to be someone that's, bigger, stronger, more, successful, all of those things. I want you to begin to see yourself as someone who's there to serve, someone who's there with the solution to a problem, and you are the one to be able to provide that for that potential client. Ask more questions. Don't assume. Right? When we make those assumptions, we're often missing out on getting buy-in from everyone in the room. Our biases sometimes lead us to asking, or cause us to ask leading questions instead of allowing them to tell us what they really need so that we can address that. And so, again, I'm hoping that you're walking away with more questions. This is such a big topic. I wish we could talk about it, in a full day workshop or something and have time to really go deep. But what I really want for anyone who's listening to this, if you took the time to hear me all the way through, then it's something that may be important to you. Just know that diversity, equity, inclusion is an important part of your sales process, whether it be your internal sales team. How small it is does not matter. It's also important that you consider mirroring your buying team. Meaning, I'm not saying that when you have, thank you so much, Val, I appreciate that. I'm not saying that when you have a black buyer, you automatically bring your black seller and put them together. That's not what I'm saying. And please don't do that for the sake of doing it. But what I am saying is make sure that you have people on your sales team who can understand the needs of the people who are in the room on the buying side, people who've done the work, people who, again, come with a different perspective, maybe understand them differently than you, right? And creating that opportunity for us to ask great questions, to hear what they're saying and not what we've assumed, not what we've experienced in the past, and just create a different environment in your company and for your buyers, because I promise you we're missing opportunities if we're not taking this into consideration. Now, if you're saying, hey, this is interesting, I realize it's important, and I don't know what to do from here, you know what? Jump on my calendar. Let me see if I can drop it in there real quick. Um, if you're able, if you're wanting rather to just jump on my calendar and schedule some time for us to kind of have a deeper conversation, then I'm happy for us to be able to do that. I'm gonna see if I can put it there. I don't know. It should be on there. It's tishtimes.com/calendar. Easy peasy. And let's just talk about it, right? Let's just decide, what things might need to shift, change, be added, be removed from your sales process. If you're like, girl, I don't even have a sales process, I'm not even there yet, then definitely jump on my calendar. Let's spend some time talking about creating a sales process. But this is a good thing. If you're not in a place where you have a sales process yet, this is the great time to create one that's great, that works beautifully, that converts well, but also takes into consideration some of the things we're talking about today. I would love to have a deeper conversation with you. I'd love to be able to answer your questions. So once again, if you're listening to this later, put hashtag replay in the comments and shoot me your question. Let me know how I can assist you as it pertains to diversity, inclusion, and equity as a part of your sales process. I'm Tish Times. I will talk to you all soon. Thank you for being here. I'm so glad I got a chance to see some of my friends here in the broadcast. And those who I don't know yet, I'm looking forward to getting to know you soon. Jump on the calendar. I'll talk to you later. Bye.